The wind came down the wall with a blade in it. It worried at the seams of Jon's black cloak as he crossed the yard, setting the fabric to snapping like a banner gone ragged in a winter storm. Snow had crusted over the flagstones, been broken by boots, frozen again, and broken once more until the whole of Castle Black seemed paved in old bone. Torches smoked under iron brackets. Men bent their heads and hunched into themselves. The wall towered above all of it, pale as a cliff of moonlit glass, mute and merciless. Clydas had sent for him in the king's name just before dawn. That alone would have been enough to sour the morning, but the blind unease and ghost had done the rest. The direwolf had padded at Jon's side through the cold gloom of the stair, silent as falling ash, with the hair along his back half risen. There had been a summons before, and another before that, each wrapped in courtesy thin as onion skin, each concealing the same hard kernel. A king wanted something. Kings always did. The king was waiting beside a brazier when Jon entered, one gauntleted hand braced on the back of a chair. Stannis looked as if the north had been gnawing at him since the day he came ashore. The cold had sharpened him rather than worn him down. His cheeks were hollower, the lines about his mouth cut deeper, and there was old iron in the set of his jaw. His crown sat above a face made for command and not for love. Beside him, the Red Woman seemed less human than the fire that lit her. The ruby at her throat held a dark pulse, as if some heart beat inside the stone. A few others had been called as witnesses. Sir Godry stood near the wall in his layers of boiled leather and mail, his eyes small and avid beneath frost-stiff lashes. Justin had parchment laid out on a trestle table beside the king's seal. The smell of hot wax mingled with smoke and cold wool, and the faint sourness of damp men kept too long in winter. No one spoke until the door shut behind Jon. Stannis studied him for a moment. "Lord Snow, Your Grace." Jon did not kneel. Stannis had never cared much for flourishes, and Jon had little taste for them. He put a hand on Ghost's neck. The direwolf's fur was thick and cold beneath his glove. "I did not summon you to trade courtesies." No. Stannis moved around the chair and stood squarely before the fire. "I have made you an offer once already. You have had time to weigh it. The North remains in the hands of oath-breakers and butchers. A girl who bears your sister's name is in Bolton hands. Winterfell is held by men who murdered their guests beneath their own roof and wrapped themselves in stolen skins. The mountain clans watch and wait. White Harbor smiles and lies. Karstark's plot. Umber's brood. None of them will march for me because I am a southern king and a stranger. Some of them may march for a Stark. Now, the word fell between them like a thing alive. Jon had known it would. Even so, he felt it strike somewhere below the ribs. Once he had dreamed of hearing that name without mockery or pity or the cold little twist it put in people's mouths. He had dreamed it in boyhood beside the pools in the Godswood while Bran climbed and Arya splashed and Rickon chased a black puppy through the leaves. He had dreamed it when Robb had clasped his forearm before riding south. He had dreamed it more fiercely after Eddard Stark had gone to his death in King's Landing and the world had broken open around them all. He had buried those dreams in black wool on the day he took his vows, or told himself he had. My answer was no, he said, because it had been. Stannis' mouth flattened. It was. The Red Woman's eyes did not leave Jon's face. Flames change. Men do as well. Jon ignored her. If your grace has called me here to ask again, my vows are not lighter this morning than they were when last you weighed them in your hand. Stannis gave a short sound that was not quite a laugh. Your vows, a useful refuge. Men build walls out of words when stone will not serve them. I swore before gods and men. And if the realm dies because you clung to a string of words while better men fought your war for you, what will your gods say then? Stannis took a step nearer. There was no heat in him save the heat of will. Do not prate to me of vows, boy. I was suckled on duty. I have broken men, held castles, starved for my brother, and watched a kingdom choose charm over justice. I know what duty costs. The wall has its purpose. So does Winterfell. I need the North, and the North needs a name its lords can answer to without choking. No, I am not Ned Stark's trueborn son. No, you are his son in all the ways that matter to northern fools. Tardy. The contempt in the words did not blunt the shrewdness beneath. Blood, face, temper, wolf. They will see what they wish to see. Give them a Stark and I can break the Boltons. Give me Winterfell, and I can turn north again when the time comes. Or did you think I crossed half the world to sit forever in this frozen midden? Oh. Answer B. A muscle worked in Jon's cheek. He thought of the wall with its dwindling stores, its crumbling towers, its men too few by half and too divided for comfort. He thought of the haunted forest, of dead things with blue eyes, of every tale old Nan had whispered by the fire now walking toward the world again on silent feet. He thought of the raven from Winterfell, of Arya's name in Bolton hands like a knife in a cut-purse's fist. He heard his father's voice in memory, grave and quiet beneath the rustle of red leaves. The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. A lord's duty is hard. A lord's duty is for those born to it. But Jon had not been born to it. That had always been the wound. What of the watch? He asked. Stannis did not blink. It will choose another Lord Commander. By what right do you unmake a brother's vows? By the same right that lets me make lords and strip traitors and call banners in war. I am king. The watch takes no part in the quarrels of kings. I know the words. Stannis' voice sharpened. Yet the wall stood because I came. Else Mansraider would be sharing your bedchamber with 1,000 of his best men while you froze in the yard with an arrow in your back. Do not tell me what part the watch takes. It has already taken mine. He let the words hang a moment, then went on more coolly. If your brothers prefer to call you deserter, I will answer them. If they are wise, they will elect another man and thank me for returning their commander's burden to them. Ghost's lips peeled back from his teeth in a silent snarl. Melisandre watched the direwolf with strange fondness. The brothers will not thank you, Jon said. I have lived too long to expect gratitude. That, at least, was true. Melisandre moved then, slow as a candle flame bending in a draught. I have seen you in the fire, she said to Jon. Not as you are, and not as you have been. The old name clings to you like snowmelt clings to stone, but beneath it, there is iron. And beneath the iron there is something colder still. You stand at a gate. One road leads to blackness, one to blood. Both lead to winter. One gives you a sword in your hand. Nynaeve. Jon had heard her speak so to other men, and watched them mistake smoke for prophecy and prophecy for license. Yet when her gaze fixed him, he felt the hair rise on his arms despite the heat of the brazier. I need no woman's fire to tell me winter is coming. No, she said softly. But you may need it to understand what winter asks of you. Stannis cut across her. Enough. The room was very still. Wax dripped from a candle onto the board beside Justin's hand and cooled to white. Somewhere outside a horse stamped and rattled tack. The wall groaned low in its foundations, a sound old as glaciers. Jon looked into the brazier and saw not flame but faces. Robb laughing with snow in his hair. Arya barefoot in the godswood mud, Bran with his climbing hands, Rickon fierce and small, Sansa at her needlework. His father beneath the heart tree with the red leaves moving around him like dropped blood. He saw Winterfell's towers under snow, smoke rising blue from the chimneys. The broken tower where he had hidden with Arya as children. The first courtyard where they had played at swords until Sir Roderick had sent them both sprawling. He saw flayed men on pale banners whipping above those same stones. He saw a girl called Arya alone among enemies. And behind all of it, like a deeper darkness waiting beyond the horizon, he saw the dead. His vows came to him then, not in the solemn boy's voice with which he had once spoken them, but in all the uses they forbade. No lands, no wife, no crown, no children, no place to belong save a wall of ice and the men beside him. He had wanted the wall. He had chosen it. But he had not chosen the shape of the war beyond it. nor the ruin of the north, nor the way every road now seemed to lead back through Winterfell's gate. Stannis was watching him with the hard patience of a man who had already decided the world should bend, and was waiting to see whether it would crack first. Melisandre's eyes burned like coals half-banked. Jon heard himself ask, "What of the old gods?" For the first time, something like irritation flickered over Stannis' face. "Must we waste the dawn on trees? It matters. To you, perhaps." Stannis glanced at the Red Woman, then back to Jon. "Keep your gods if they keep you warm. I have no need to turn half the north against me to satisfy a priestess' vanity. I need Winterfell won, prey to carved wood, frozen streams, your father's ghost, if it helps you hold the castle when Bolton comes." Melisandre smiled as if at a jest only she understood. The brazier popped. Jon looked at Ghost. The direwolf's eyes were red in the firelight and strange as blood on snow. Not man's eyes, not holy beasts. There was no judgment in them, only waiting. Jon drew a breath so cold it seemed to freeze in his chest. "When the letters are written," he said, "they should go first to the mountain clans. The wolves remember old wrongs. So do the Norries and Littles. A Southron king will earn their suspicion. A Stark's name may earn them out of their hills." Justin's head came up sharply. Stannis did not so much as blink. "Then you accept." The words were too simple for what they did. They cut one life from another. Jon kept his hand on Ghost and felt the wolf's great pulse under the fur. "I accept." Stannis exhaled through his nose. Once. Satisfaction was too warm a thing for his face. What showed there instead was the setting of a stone in a wall. "Good," he said. "Then let us make you dangerous." Once the word was spoken, the room changed. Before, Jon had been a man holding himself against a temptation. After, he was already the center of a design larger than himself, and every person there seemed to feel the shift at once. Justin bent over the table, gathering quills with sudden urgency. Sir Godry straightened and gave Jon the measuring look men reserve for new-made rivals and uncertain allies. Even the brazier seemed hotter. Stannis wasted no time on triumph. "Right," he told Justin. "To the mountain clans first, as he says. To White Harbor as well. To Deepwood Moat and the Mormonts. To Last Hearth. To every holdfast with men enough to bear a spear and enough memory to know what Bolton means. Use the king's seal on some and the direwolf on the rest once one is fashioned." "Da, one can be cut by noon, your grace," Justin said. "See that it is." "What am I called on the parchment?" Jon asked. Stannis turned his head. "What do you think?" The answer should have come easy after what he had said. Instead, it lodged in Jon's throat. Snow had been the name the world had given him. Snow, for bastardy and winter and the way he was always set apart from the trueborn, even at table. He had hated it as a boy, borne it as a youth, worn it at the wall until it had become almost another oath. Snow had been the name his friends used, the one Ygritte had laughed at, the one Jeor Mormont had barked across a yard, the one his father had spoken without shame. To lay it down felt less like putting off a garment than flaying off a skin. Stannis answered for him. Jon Stark. The word hung there, absurd and grave and heavy as a gate beam. No one smiled. Justin dipped the quill. The scratch of nib on parchment seemed indecently loud. Stannis began dictating in the blunt style he favored, each phrase another hammer stroke. By the grace of the king, by right and necessity, to all lords true and false, let it be known. Jon found he could not listen to the formalities without a strange doubling in his head. One part of him stood by the brazier hearing the letters made. Another stood far off in Winterfell's godswood, unable to move. Melisandre drifted close enough that he smelled her then. Not perfume, not exactly, but heat and myrrh and something sharper underneath, as if incense had been burned over steel. "You feel the old name resisting," she said. Jon did not look at her. "You speak as if names were living things. They are. Men die for them. They kill for them as well." Her red mouth curved. That too. On the table, Justin sanded the first parchment and reached for another. Stannis was dictating to the wolves now, stripping all flourish from the message. Come, the king's justice rides with Stark blood. Bolton flays. Winter comes. Bring your axes. It sounded more like threat than invitation, but then, in the north, threat and invitation often shared a face. The door opened with a gust of cold and Selyse swept in as if carried on it, her long horse face pinched more sharply than the weather alone could account for. She had wrapped herself in furs that somehow made her seem barer, not warmer. And she brought 2 queen's men in her wake, each with a look of oily zeal. I was told you had sent for witnesses, she said to Stannis, then saw Jon and the parchments and understood enough for her lip to curl. Ah, Stannis's expression soured by a degree. You were told rightly. What I see, Selyse said, is a Lord Commander who has forgotten himself and a husband who is too ready to reward insolence. I see a queen who mistakes war for piety, Stannis said. She ignored him to address Jon. If he is to be raised up, he should be cleansed first. Let him renounce his false gods and accept the Lord's light before witnesses. Else you make only a wolf in a finer collar. No. Ghost moved before Jon did. One pale step forward, silent and smooth. The queen's men put hands to sword hilts. Jon said, "My gods are no concern of yours, your grace. They are my concern if you are to hold your lands from my lord husband," she snapped. "They are not," Stannis said. "He will keep them." Selyse turned on him, incredulous. "You would set a heathen in Winterfell? I would set a Stark in Winterfell. There's a difference. In this matter," Stannis said, "I cannot spare the luxury of caring." The queen's nostrils flared. For a moment, Jon thought she might press harder, but Melisandre laid 2 fingers lightly on Selyse's sleeve, and the older woman stilled. The red woman's voice was soft enough that the softness itself became a warning. "There are many roads to the same battle," she said. "Some men come to the light by way of snow." Jon almost laughed at that and despised himself for the impulse. Selyse drew herself up. "Then let it be upon your head." She cast Jon one last look of cold disfavor. "A bastard remains a bastard in the sight of heaven." "Not if a king says otherwise," Stannis replied. That ended it. The queen swept out with all the dignity rage would allow her, the 2 queen's men after. The room seemed easier to breathe in once she had gone. Stannis rubbed at his brow as if pushing away a pain. "You will have that sort of nonsense at every turn. I have had it all my life." "Then you are trained for lordship better than most." The letters grew. To White Harbor, more careful words. To the Mormonts, sterner ones. To the clans, promises of vengeance. Jon found himself stepping to the table at last, drawn in despite the churn within him. He named roads, grudges, marriages, old loyalties. He warned Stannis away from trusting Arnulf Karstark too easily, and saw the king mark the warning. He advised that no mention be made of southern gods in any raven bound for hill or holdfast north of the neck. Stannis accepted that too. A king who listened was a rare and dangerous thing. At length Justin set down the last quill for the moment and flexed stiff fingers. Wax pooled in little red islands near the candles. One parchment remained blank before the king. "What is that one?" Jon asked. Stannis' gaze slid to him. "Yours." He took up the quill himself, not Justin, and wrote in a hand spare and angular as frost-cracked branches. Jon watched the strokes appear, one after another, each black line fixing the impossible deeper in the world. When Stannis finished, he blew on the ink, then held the parchment out. Jon took it. The decree was formal enough to make his eyes ache, but the heart of it blazed clear. Jon, late called Snow, natural son of Eddard Stark, hereafter to be accounted legitimate and true-born, by royal authority restored to his father's name, with all rights and dignities thereto pertaining, and named Lord of Winterfell under the king's peace. His own face did not seem his own while he read it. "There will be witnesses by dusk," Stannis said. "Your brothers, my captains, the queen, if she can keep from hissing long enough. The decree will be read. Your name will be spoken aloud. Let the castle hear it and carry it in every mouth." Duh. Jon lowered the parchment. "You mean to force the matter before the Watch can decide whether to stop it?" Stannis' eyes were flat. "I mean to deny fools the time to believe their outrage gives them power." That was truth as naked as an axe head. Melisandre was still studying Jon. "Do not sleep alone tonight," she said. He turned to her, tired already of being handled like a piece in a game played over his head. "Why?" "Because knives love confusion." Stannis' jaw tightened. "If any brother of yours forgets himself, I will hang him from the wall." "No," Jon said at once. The king's gaze hardened. "You would spare men who murder their commander?" "I would spare the Watch another wound. Put guards at the door if you like. Keep your men near the stair. But if blood is shed over this inside Castle Black, the wall will remember longer than any of us." Stannis held his stare a moment, then gave a curt nod. "Very well. Guards, not gallows. Unless someone forces my hand." Ghost eased under Jon's palm as if he understood. Or perhaps Jon only needed to believe that something in this room understood him. Stannis gestured toward the door. "Go. Tell your men before rumor does. If you still have the stomach for it by dusk, return." Jon folded the decree once, very carefully, and tucked it inside his cloak as if it were a wound he meant to hide from the cold. When he turned to go, Melisandre said, "The snow is only white from afar, Jon." He paused, despite himself. "Up close," she said, "it is made of all the colors of the world." He left her with the fire. He went first not to the armory or the common hall, but to the little room where Aemon kept his books, his herbs, and what remained of his strength. The passage was colder there. Castle Black seemed full of old drafts no mason had ever found the heart to mend. Jon's boots sounded too loud on the boards. Ghost moved ahead of him and stopped at the door without being told. Inside, the room smelled of wax, dried leaves, and the faint medicinal bitterness of boiled bark. Aemon sat bundled near the brazier, his sightless eyes pale beneath lids as thin as parchment, his hands folded on a blanket over his knees. Time had pared him down until he seemed made mostly of bones and will. Sam was bent over a shelf, sorting vials by candlelight with his tongue caught between his teeth in concentration. He turned at the sound of the latch and his face broke open with relief that lasted only until he saw Jon's expression. "What is it?" Sam asked at once. "Has something happened?" "Yes," Jon said. Aemon inclined his head toward the voice. "Come closer, child. The cold follows you." Dio. Jon stepped in. Ghost slipped past him and laid his great white head against the old maester's knee, as if they had agreed between themselves to soften what was coming. Aemon's hand found the direwolf's ruff by instinct and rested there. Sam took one look at the snow clinging to Jon's cloak, and the parchment corner showing at his breast, and went pale. What has he done now? Jon shut the door. For a moment, he could not find the shape of the words. "I have accepted the king's offer," he said at last. Sam stared. The little glass vial in his hand slid from nerveless fingers and struck the floor with a soft clink. By luck or providence, it did not break. For one heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Sam said, "No." There was so much naked fear in the word that Jon almost flinched. "I have," he said more quietly. "You cannot." "I can. I did." "No." Sam's round face reddened. His eyes shone at once. "No, you cannot. You cannot. You are the Lord Commander. You took the vows. We all heard you take them. You said them same as I did, same as Gren and Pip and all the rest. You can just..." He made a helpless motion with both hands, as if the enormity of it might be gathered back into the air and shoved out the window. "Jon, I know what I swore." "Then how?" The question cut more deeply than the denial. Jon pulled the decree free of his cloak and held it out, but Sam did not take it. He only looked at the parchment as though it might stain him through the air. Aemon turned his head slightly. listening to the silence between them. "Read it," Jon said. Sam swallowed and took the decree with fingers that trembled. He read faster than Jon expected, his lips moving a little over the formal phrases. Halfway through, his breathing changed. By the end, he was blotched with emotion from collar to brow. "Jon Stark," he whispered, and then louder with wounded disbelief. "Lord of Winterfell." The words sounded monstrous in Sam's mouth. Aemon's hand did not move from Ghost's fur. "Is that what you have become?" "It is what the king says I am." "That is not the same answer." Jon felt a tired bitterness stir. "It may be the only one I am allowed." Sam looked up sharply. "Allowed? By whom?" "By the world as it is. By Ramsay Bolton in my father's hall. By the girl wearing Arya's name. By the dead gathering in the woods while we count turnips and argue over cellars." His voice had roughened without his meaning it to. He made himself master it. "Stannis needs the North. The North will not come to him for justice alone. It may come for Winterfell, if I can help him take it." "You're not listening," Sam said, almost sobbing with frustration. "I don't care what Stannis needs. I care what happens to you." The brazier hissed softly. Jon had not expected that to be the blow that landed. He looked away before Sam could read too much in his face. Aemon spoke into the small room like a man speaking into snow, knowing the sound would not carry far and saying what must be said all the same. "Duty and desire are seldom enemies when a man is very young. That is one mercy youth provides. Later they learn each other's names." Sam turned to him. "Maester." "No, let him speak, and let us hear him fully." Aemon's blind eyes rested somewhere near Jon's shoulder. "Why?" Jon breathed in the scent of hot metal and herbs and old wool. "Because the wall cannot stand alone. Because if Bolton holds Winterfell and the North stays broken, every castle from here to the neck will face the dark one by one, with no granaries full and no banners joined. Because Arya is there, or one girl called Arya is. Because my father's people may answer where they will not answer Stannis. Because I am tired of pretending the dead beyond the wall will wait politely while we debate the purity of vows." "No." Sam wiped at his face with the heel of his hand. "That isn't fair." "No." Jon's laugh was short and hard. "It isn't." "You're angry," Aemon said. "Yes." "At whom?" Jon might have lied to any other man. The old maester's blindness made lying seem childish. "At everyone," he said. "At the Boltons, at Stannis, at the Watch, at the gods, at myself most of all." Aemon nodded a fraction, as if some private tally had been confirmed. "Good. A man who changes his life without anger has not understood the cost." "Me." Sam let out a shaky breath. "How can you say that?" "Because I am old enough to know the shape of regret before it arrives." Aemon's hand moved once, absently, over Ghost's thick white fur. "Do you ask me whether his choice is lawful? It is not. Do you ask whether it is clean? It is not that either. But the world has a habit of presenting us with dirty hands and demanding we build something with them. The wall was not raised by pure men. It was raised by desperate ones. Jon sank down on the bench opposite him before his legs could decide to give way. The room felt close. "Then you do not condemn me." Aemon gave a dry smile that was almost invisible. "I am a maester of the Citadel and a brother of the Night's Watch. My condemnation is worth less than a cracked bowl when winter deepens. I ask a simpler thing. When you ride south, will you remember what rides north?" Jon closed his hand around Longclaw's pommel. "Every step. Then perhaps you have not abandoned your watch so much as moved its line." Aemon tipped his head. "Perhaps." Sam made a strangled sound. "Perhaps? Is that all?" "It is more mercy than most men receive." Sam stood there breathing hard, the decree still in one hand. Then, suddenly and clumsily, he crossed the room and knelt before Jon as if his knees had gone weak rather than chosen it. "I don't know how to help you," he whispered. Jon reached out and caught his shoulder. Help the wall. Help, Aemon. Keep the stores honest. Don't let Bowen cut the food too thin for the men on the haunted forest side. Watch the Queen's men around the armory. And if Melisandre says she's seen my death in a flame, tell her to choke on it. Nam. A wet laugh escaped Sam despite the tears. It broke in the middle. You shouldn't joke. No, Jon said. But I am. Sam looked at him a long while, then nodded once, miserably. Will you come back? The question lived under everything and gave it shape. Jon did not answer at once. He thought of Winterfell under snow, of Stannis' hard eyes, of the brothers in black who would hear his new name before dusk and spit at it, or fear it, or both. He thought of the wall above them, older than crowns. If there's a wall to come back to, he said, I mean to. Aemon lifted one hand. Jon leaned forward so the old man could find his face. Thin fingers brushed his cheek, his brow, the line of his jaw, reading him as another man might read a scar. You do not sound like a boy, Aemon murmured. I feel like one. That passes, said the old man. Then it returns at inconvenient hours until death cures it. His hand fell away. Go. Tell your brothers before silence does worse work on your behalf. No. Sam rose and thrust the decree back at him as though the parchment itself had become too hot to hold. At the door, Jon stopped. Sam. Sam looked up. I am sorry. Sam's mouth folded in on itself. I know. It was not forgiveness. It was only love with nowhere good to go. The officers came stiff-backed and suspicious, summoned from their tasks with little warning and less kindness in the message. Bowen arrived first, pink-faced despite the cold, his mouth already set in offended folds. Othell came after him with a builder's slow stride and wary eyes. Iron Emmett lounged in last among the Black brothers, looking like a man who had smelled smoke before the rest, and was not yet sure where the fire lay. Clydas slipped in behind them carrying ink and wax tablets because Clydas always seemed to appear wherever bad news wished itself written down. Jon had chosen the Lord Commander's room for the meeting because he could not bear the common hall for it. The room was not large, but it had once belonged to Jorah Mormont, and some part of him wanted the dead bear present, whether by memory or rebuke. He stood behind the table when they entered. Longclaw lay across the boards. The bronze seal of the Lord Commander sat beside it, heavy and dark. A ring of keys waited by his hand. The sight of those on the table made Bowen stop. What's this? He demanded. Jon did not ease him into it. I have accepted Stannis Baratheon's offer of legitimization in Winterfell. The words were stones thrown into still water. Shock struck every face in the room, though not in the same shape. Othell swore softly under his breath. Clydas made a sound like a man choking on soup. Iron Emmett's brows climbed halfway to his hairline, then settled again as if he had decided astonishment could be spared later. Bowen only stared. His cheeks went from pink to a dangerous mottled red. You what? Jon held his gaze. I accepted. By dusk the king will proclaim it before witnesses. I am relinquishing command of the watch. You say. For a moment, Jon thought Bowen might simply burst, as an overripe fruit bursts in the hand. When he found speech, it came in a rush. No, you will not. You will not relinquish anything. You are the Lord Commander. You swore as we all swore. You do not put off the black when a king dangles a lordship under your nose like a bit of salt pork. This is madness. Perhaps, Jon said. It is done, all the same. Bowen came around the table a step too fast. Emmett moved at once, not drawing steel but putting himself where he could. Bowen barely saw him. Done, the Lord Steward spluttered. Done? Not while I have breath to call it by its name. Desertion, that is its name. Oath-breaking, treason to the order. Jon's hands flattened on the table. I have not sold our gates to an enemy. You have sold your vows. The words struck harder because Bowen believed them with his whole soft, frightened soul. Othell spoke before Jon could answer. What does the king say of this? That he releases me. Bowen gave a strangled laugh. Releases you? Since when does a king release a black brother? The wall is older than all the kings that ever sat a throne in the south. No man is loosed from his vows save by death. Nani? Pam. Then count me dead, Jon said. Silence followed that. Bowen's eyes widened with something like horror. Do not mock this. I am not mocking it. Jon heard the iron in his own voice and let it remain. Listen to me. The north is held by Boltons. Winterfell is lost. The wall has food for one winter if the counts are honest and less if they are not. The dead walk beyond our woods. Stannis cannot unite the north without a Stark beside him. If Winterfell is regained, the wall has a chance of getting men, grain, timber, horses, all it lacks and all it will need. If Bolton keeps the castle, we have Southrun fires at our back, corpses at our front, and no friends on either side. Nah. We are not here to make friends, Bowen snapped. No, said Jon. We are here to live. The Lord Steward opened and shut his mouth. The fat little cords in his neck stood out sharply. You speak like a lord already. I speak like a man who has watched too many brothers count beans while pretending the world ends politely. That landed badly. Good. Part of him thought savagely. Let truth draw blood where courtesies cannot. Bowen's hands curled into fists. And what of us? What do you leave? A chaos of commands, king's men in our yards, wildlings at our gates. Stores already promised 3 times over. And you riding off because your bastard heart remembers it wanted a father's hall after all. There it was. Jon stood very still. The insult itself mattered less than the nakedness of it. Because Bowen was not wholly wrong. Somewhere under duty and rage and cold arithmetic, there was still the boy who had wanted Winterfell like a starving child wants bread. I leave the seal, Jon said. He touched the bronze. The keys, the offices. Call an election as soon as you can. Until then, the steward and builder will hold the watch together between them. Between us? Othel barked. As if we are a pair of carpenters mending a roof while you go to war? You are what the wall has. The wall had you, Bowen said. It would have been easier if that had come out accusing. Instead, it came out wounded. Jon drew a breath. Any brother who wishes to ride south with me will first put off the black. That set off a fresh uproar. Othel swore louder. Clytus looked as if he wanted to melt into the mortar. Bowen stared in disbelief. You mean to steal men too? I mean no black brother rides in the king's war while wearing the black. Not one. And what man would do such a fool thing? Emmett said from the wall. More than one, I'd wager. All heads turned. He lifted a shoulder. You asked? Bowen rounded on him. Would you? I took no oath to your comfort, Lord Steward. Emmett's face gave away very little. If Lord Snow... He broke off, corrected himself with care. If Jon is set on this road, some men may find the road suits them better than another winter freezing atop the wall, while lords play flaying games below. He is a deserter, Bowen said. Emmett's mouth twitched. Then he'll have plenty of company, judging by how hard the North has worked at falling apart. Jon cut in before that could worsen. No man will be asked. No man will be coaxed. No man will be taken in black. The watch remains the watch. You cannot have it both ways, Bowen said. No, Jon said softly. I know. The room had grown hot from anger and crowded breath. Jon took up the ring of keys and set them beside the seal. The iron clinked once on the wood. Then he unfastened the Lord Commander's chain from his neck and laid that down too. The simple act seemed to empty the room more than shouting had. Clytus made a small, involuntary whimper. I did not ask you here for blessing, Jon said. Only to hear it from me, before the king reads it, before the yard. By dusk, every man in Castle Black will know. I would sooner the officers hear it with a door closed than in front of half the Queen's men. Nay. Bowen looked at the things on the table as if they were severed fingers. I won't stand for this. Jon's temper flashed. You may sit if standing pains you. Emmett barked a laugh that he half choked off. Othell shut his eyes briefly, perhaps in prayer for patience, perhaps to keep from smiling at the wrong moment. Bowen went purple. You think the king's guards make you safe? No, Jon said. I think nothing makes any of us safe. For one heartbeat he saw it then. Not this meeting, but another room, another moment, knives flashing in startled torchlight. The vision came and went so quickly he could not be sure whether it rose from memory, fear, or Melisandre's words. Bowen saw only defiance. When you walk out that door, you walk as no brother of mine. Jon took that too. Then hold the wall better than you loved me. The Lord Steward's face crumpled in a way Jon had not expected, and because he had not expected it, he had no defense against the shame that followed. Bowen turned away first. Othell stayed. If you're wrong, he said, you'll kill us all. Jon nodded. I know. And if you're right, then perhaps we live long enough to face the real war. Othell grunted, which might have been assent or contempt or merely the sound a builder made when asked to shoulder too much weight. He took the seal from the table and weighed it in one hand. Emmett, on his way out, paused by Jon long enough to say under his breath, "Best keep your wolf near tonight." I mean to. When the room emptied at last, only Clytus lingered, hovering beside the door with the look of a man caught between terror and loyalty. "Is there anything you require?" he asked faintly. Jon looked at the abandoned chain, the keys, the seal no longer his. A stronger castle. Clytus gave a shaky nod as though taking the request seriously, and left. Ghost came around the table and pressed his muzzle to Jon's hand. Jon stood among the remnants of one life, hearing the murmur spread already beyond the walls like ice cracking on a lake. By the time the sun would have been high in any kinder country, the light had flattened into the pale, grudging gray that passed for afternoon at the wall. News traveled faster than ravens in a closed castle. By then, men were already breaking off in pairs when Jon passed, or else holding his gaze too long in challenge, as if daring him to claim a place among them he no longer had. The Queen's men watched him with the curious hostility zealots reserved for useful sinners. The King's men looked him over as soldiers did any commander they might soon be made to follow, measuring weight, voice, and whether his eyes shifted when pressed. He endured it until he could not bear stone and human breath another moment, then climbed to the top of the wall alone save for Ghost. The cold there was clean in a way the yards below were not. It did not care for kings or vows or what men called one another. It stripped the world to edge and emptiness. Snow moved across the ice in thin, ghost-pale veils. Far below, torch fire pricked the castle like embers trapped at the bottom of a frozen river. Jon stood with both hands on the ice-rimed parapet and looked south. There was nothing to see but distance. The King's Road ran away under snow like a scar half-healed. Somewhere beyond those hills lay Winterfell. Men always climb when they do not know what to do next. Val's voice came out of the wind as if the wind had chosen to speak. Jon turned. She had come along the ice walk as lightly as if the wall itself had been a forest path. Snow clung to the white fur at her shoulders and turned her almost spectral against the dusk. She was all movement and stillness at once, like a spear poised to fly. Ghost looked at her and did not growl. That counted for more than courtesy. "I know what I'm to do next," Jon said. "Ride south and put a different skin on your name." "That too." Val came to stand beside him. She laid gloved hands on the parapet and gazed out without hunching against the cold. "The Red Woman says your path has opened." "The Red Woman says many things. She says them more sweetly than your steward does." Jon let out a breath that might have been a laugh if there had been more life in it. "Have you heard from Bowen, then?" "I have eyes." She glanced at him. "And ears. Your black brothers walk like men who have swallowed thorns. They may yet spit them out, or drive them into your back." There was no gentleness in the warning. That was one of the things he liked best about her. She told me much the same. Melisandre sees daggers because she carries one in every smile. Below them in the King's Yard, A brazier flared up as if to answer her. The Red Woman was there, a moving point of ember among darker shapes. Even from above, Jon could pick her out at once. Beside one window in the king's tower, a warmer light glowed, and within it, just for a moment, he thought he saw Salissa's narrow face before the shutter moved and hid her. Val followed his glance. The Queen hates you. She hardly knows me. That has never stopped hatred in the South. Val drew one of her fur gloves off with her teeth and reached out to the ice. Her bare fingers rested against it a moment, unflinching. In the true North, names matter less. Deeds matter. A man who can keep the cold from taking children is worth 10 kings. I'm not going south for a crown. She gave him a sidelong look. Are you certain? Men say many things before a hall full of kneeling people. No one will kneel. Someone always kneels. Her mouth quirked, if only to pick up what wiser men have dropped. The wind rose. Snow hissed along the ice. Jon felt it find every weakness in his clothes. You think I'm wrong, he said. Val was quiet a while. I think crows are strange. You cut the world into little boxes with your words, and then bleed when the world refuses to stay inside them. You wore black and called that a life. Now a king gives you another word and all the men around you behave as if the old one had bones. It does, of a sort. She studied him, then the ghostly shape of the world beyond. In my father's hall there was a dog that had been wolf-bred 3 generations back. Men called it dog. Sheep called it wolf. It bit the hand of anyone foolish enough to think naming it had changed its teeth. Jon looked at Ghost, and the direwolf looked back, ears pricked, red eyes unwinking. And what am I to you? Val smiled without warmth. A man with wolf's eyes who has spent too long pretending he belongs in a rookery. The truth of it stung because it was not whole truth and not whole lie either. Winterfell is not mine, Jon said. Saying it aloud did not make it less terrible. Even if I take it, even if Stannis wins it for me, it is Bran's if he lives, or Rickon's, or Arya's if she is truly there. I know that. Then take it for them. As if it were that simple. As if it were anything else. He almost said you do not understand. But of course she understood something he did not. Free folk had never knelt to inheritance with the reverence Southron lords expected. Blood mattered, yet so did strength, and Winter cared for neither in the end. The old freedom of that thought called to him even here. Below, Melisandre moved away from the yard fire and into the shadow of a wall, red robes drawing darkness after them. Jon felt, rather than saw, her turn her face upward. You've told her then, Val said. She knew before I did. That is another reason not to trust her. Jon leaned his forearms on the parapet. I don't. Val was silent a moment, then said, the men in your black wool don't hate you because you are taking a lord's seat. They hate you because you are proving a thing they do not want proved. Me. What thing? That the wall is not enough to keep a man from wanting more. The words struck close. Jon watched his breath vanish into the evening. Perhaps they're right to hate me for it. Val's laugh was soft and sharp. Then the whole world should be at war with itself. They stood together as the light failed. For a few moments the wall seemed to belong to neither kings nor crows nor gods, only to cold, and the two of them and the white beast at their feet. It was almost peace. Then the stair door banged open below and footsteps came clattering up. A queen's man in saffron and black appeared, red-faced and breathing hard. My lady requests your presence, he said to Jon, not bothering to hide his distaste. At once. I was not told I served your lady. You are to be presented before the evening assembly, the man said stiffly. Her grace requires to know whether you will speak the proper words before the sacred fire. Val snorted. Jon did not smile. Tell her I will speak the words the king requires. The man's jaw set. In the fire? I have stood before enough fires. That was no answer, and they all knew it. The queen's man hesitated, perhaps weighing insult against prudence, then bowed shallowly and retreated. Val watched him go. You see, Southrons do love their boxes. Jon pushed away from the parapet. Stannis says I may keep my gods. Val's expression did not soften. Kings promise many things before they win castles. I know. Do you? Her eyes held his. Then remember this when you stand in your father's hall. The North will endure a hard man, a bastard man, even a broken man. It will not endure a man who lets southern fire eat its gods. Nuntree. He thought of Winterfell's gods wood under snow, of the heart tree's red leaves shivering in the wind. He thought too of Shireen's solemn face and Celis's zeal and the Red Woman's heat. None of it fit cleanly together. I won't let them burn it, he said. Val nodded once. Good. Then perhaps your new name will last until spring. She pulled her glove back on and moved toward the stair. Ghost watched her pass, then returned to Jon's side. He stood a while longer after she had gone, while below the castle gathered itself for evening, and for the speaking aloud of things that could not be unsaid. The war council gathered in a room too small for the north and too cold for comfort. Someone had spread a painted map across a table and weighted its curling edges with stones. The parchment had seen much use and little gentleness. The inks were worn where men's fingers had traced roads and rivers in search of advantage. Daggers pinned certain places. A drinking cup marked Castle Black. A cracked bit of antler marked Winterfell. The Dreadfort was marked by a piece of black iron. Jon thought that fitting. Stannis stood at the head of the table with his hands on either side of the map, like a man pinning down a beast by the neck. Justin was there again, as was Sir Richard and a pair of king's men whose names Jon did not care to learn. He had expected Axel, and was relieved not to see him. There were only so many pieties a man could endure in one day. You were right about the letters, Stannis said without preamble when Jon entered. If a name can move half the North out of bed, I mean to wring every stride from it. Then do not waste it, Jon said. Stannis's eyes narrowed a fraction at the bluntness, but if he was offended, he hid it. Come here. Show me why I should trust your advice over that of men who have fought in more battles than you. Jon came to the table. The map smelled faintly of lamp oil and mildew. The wall cast its white shadow down the page. South lay the gift, then the new gift, then all the spread of winter-bitten holdings reaching to the neck. He had known the names since boyhood. To see them under a king's knives made the land feel at once smaller and more exposed. Stannis tapped deepwood motte. I mean to strike here first and draw the Ironborn blood. Bolton cannot ignore his western flank forever. Good, Jon said. The Mormonts hate Ironborn more than they hate kings. If you free Deepwood, Bear Island may answer. So might the Glovers if enough of them remain to matter. And after, you need the clans. Stannis grunted. You place great faith in goat-herding old men with axes. I place faith in memory. The Hill clans loved my father because he treated them as men. They remember old aid and old insults both. Give them a reason to come down, and they will come. But not for a southern lord with fire on his banners. For a Stark under your standard they may. Nah, Adam. Stannis looked at the jagged little marks that were the mountains. Names again. Men are names to the north. No, said Stannis. Men are swords. Names tell you which way they're pointed. Jon might have argued, but there was no profit in it. He set a finger farther east. White Harbor matters more than all the clans together if you can move it. Wyman Manderley is fat, cautious, and twice as shrewd as he wants you to think. He will smile with one chin and calculate with the other three. One of the king's men made a startled noise that might have been amusement. Stannis ignored it. And how do I move him? Not by asking for love, not by threatening him with justice. He has survived too long under worse men than you to tremble at that. Promise him a north with Starks in it and Boltons out of it. Promise him time. Promise him too loudly. If you corner him, he will wriggle. If you leave him a door, he may open a gate. Stannis regarded Jon over the map. You have spent long hours thinking like a lord for a man who claims not to want lordship. I spent long hours trying not to. That drew a brief, bleak curve at the edge of Stannis' mouth. And Karstark? Jon did not hesitate. Trust Arnulf only as far as you can throw the wall. Better than I'd guessed then, Stannis said. I'd not trust him that far. He would sell blood for silver if the silver were weighed in secret. If his sons or grandsons stand with you, count your fingers after you shake their hands. Stannis nodded once. Good. I prefer traitors named before they betray me. Nah. He moved the tip of a dagger to last hearth. And Umber? Jon's eyes rested on the little mark. He could almost see the huge hall, the meat and smoke and hard laughter. The old giant at the high seat. Crowfoot Umber hates kneeling. He hates Boltons too. More importantly, his men do. If he believes a Stark rides with you, he may answer. May. In the north, May is worth more than oaths sworn in a warm hall. Richard frowned at that. You speak of these lords as if they were weather. They are. Jon looked at the man. Winter changes what they'll risk. Stannis set down the dagger and began to pace the narrow space behind the table. If I win you Winterfell, Stark, I will need more than a seat filled and a hall dusted. I will need levies. Grain, roads secured. The North is not a toy for your sentiment. Sentiment, Jon almost answered sharply, then caught the trap. Stannis had a gift for calling every other man's wound by a smaller name. You'll have what the castle can give, he said. What the castle can give may not be what I ask. If the dead come first, it will be. The room went still. Richard looked between them, uneasy. Justin's quill paused. For a moment, Jon thought Stannis might explode. Instead, he stopped pacing and fixed Jon with a stare that made lesser men look at their boots. You continue to speak of these dead as if they were already at my gates. They are at all our gates. Some are only farther away than others. Stannis' face did not soften. It had too many edges for softness. But something there acknowledged the gravity. I have not forgotten why I came north, he said. No, Jon said. You haven't. That is why I'm here. The admission surprised them both. Stannis turned back to the table. You will sign some of these letters in your own hand. Jon felt the words hit like cold water. As what? Stannis looked almost amused. As what you have chosen to be. Let the ravens carry it. Justin laid 3 parchments before him. The names had already been inscribed at the top. To the wolves, to Crowfoot Umber, to Lady Maege Mormont if word could reach Bear Island. The bodies of the letters were short. Jon read them in silence. Stannis had stripped them of courtly nonsense. Good. Too much silk and a message a Northman suspected a noose hidden underneath. Add something in your own words, the king said. Jon took the quill. The feather was worn smooth from handling. Ink shone wet and black in the horn cup. For a strange instant, his hand would not move. He had signed orders as Lord Commander. He had signed tallies and requests and ravens for Eastwatch. None of those had felt like this. At last, he wrote. To the wolves he wrote of snow deep in the Wolfswood, and the flayed men in Winterfell's hall. To Crowfoot he wrote that the Boltons were a dead man's cloak, and called it rule. To Maege, he wrote only that the North needed all its daughters and sons alike, if it meant to remain the North by spring. Then below each, he said his name. The first time the letters formed themselves beneath the quill, they looked wrong. Jon Stark. The ink seemed to darken around it as if the page itself recoiled. He signed again and again until the shape grew no more natural, only more inevitable. Stannis watched without comment. When Jon finished, the king took one of the parchments, read the signature, and nodded once. That will do. Will do. As if a name were a brace on a wagon wheel, no more. Justin sanded the letters and held them to the light. The birds can fly before the ceremony if you wish. Stannis shook his head. After. Let there be no dispute what was sent and under whose authority. He looked to Jon. By dawn tomorrow I ride. You ride with me. The speed of it punched the breath from him more effectively than any delay could have. He had known it must be so. Knowing and hearing were different things. So soon? You expected me to winter in your stables. Stannis' scorn was dry as old leather. Bolton is not idle because the sky is pretty. If I am to make use of surprise, I must move before half the north convinces itself this cannot be real. Jon lowered his eyes to the map. Deepwood, Last Hearth, Winterfell, the road south. So quickly, he thought of Sam, of Aemon, of the wall under Bowen's charge, of Black brothers looking at him now as if he were already gone. Some part of him had imagined a slower break. One more night, two, some easing into betrayal. There would be none. When we leave, he said, your men do not touch the stores without written leave from the steward. Stannis' brow lifted. You bargained stoutly for a man who has resigned his office. I know how little food we have. So do I, and I know how much men eat. He considered, then jerked his chin. Fine. Written leave, unless starvation says otherwise? Jon nodded. It was the most he would get. At the door, Stannis spoke again, and the force of his voice stopped Jon before he crossed the threshold. Snow. Jon turned. The king's face was all shadow and flame in the torchlight. When you stand before the castle tonight, do not waver. Men smell doubt sooner than blood. If you flinch from your own choice, they will feed on you. Jon thought of Bowen's wounded rage, of Sam's tears, of Val's unblinking eyes. I won't flinch. See that you don't. Stannis glanced at the signed letters drying on the table. The North has too many ghosts already. Jon left with that, carrying the taste of ink and iron in his mouth. The hours between sunset and the ceremony stretched longer than a winter night. Jon spent them walking through a castle that had not yet decided whether to call him lord or traitor. Men made the choice in their eyes before they made it with their mouths. Some looked away entirely. Others let him see the judgment plain. The worst were those whose faces showed hurt before anger. Hurt could still turn back on itself, while anger begged for a target. He crossed the yard toward the armory with Ghost at his heels and heard them muttering before he reached the door. 3 stewards stood in the lee of a woodpile with cups in their hands, hoods up, cheeks bright with cold and drink. They fell silent when he came near. One of them, a narrow man with a brown beard gone stiff with frost, spat near Jon's boots. Not at them. Near them. Near enough. Ghost stopped. His lips folded back. Jon kept walking. Careful, he said, without turning his head. You'll need what spit you have before winter's done. That should have been the end. The man had meant insult, not war. But drink and fear are poor masters. He stepped away from the woodpile. You've a lord's tongue now, have you? He called. Did the king give you that with your father's name? The other 2 muttered for peace, too softly to matter. Jon turned then. The man was Wick Whittlestick, one of the stewards Bowen had often trusted with stores and errands. Wick's face was flushed with equal parts cold and courage borrowed from ale. He didn't give me my tongue, Jon said. And he won't be giving you one if you keep speaking with more than you own. Wick's hand twitched near his belt knife. Ghost came soundlessly around in front of Jon, white as the memory of a blade. Enough, Jon said. You're no brother of mine, Wick snapped. No, Jon said. Not by morning, Dochagay. The raw honesty of that struck the yard harder than any threat might have. Men nearby paused over buckets, harness, chopped wood. The fire where the Queen's men prayed crackled and sent a wash of orange over the snow. Somewhere overhead, a sentry called the hour into the wind. Wick moved. Not for the knife. Perhaps he had more wit than that, or perhaps less than he thought, but with the dumb forward lurch of a man meaning to lay hands on another and discover only then what he has begun. Jon did not draw a long claw. He stepped aside, caught Wick by the sleeve and shoulder, and turned him with more force than finesse. Wick slipped on the packed snow and would have gone hard to the ground if Iron Emmett had not come out of nowhere to catch him by the collar and slam him against the woodpile instead. Idiot, Emmett said in his ear. Wick struggled once. Ghost gave a low, hungry rumble that froze the effort in him. Several more brothers had converged by then, all faces and breath and black wool. Bowen was among them. He took in the scene at a glance. Jon still standing, Emmett pinning Wick, the direwolf poised. "What happened?" Bowen demanded. "Your man forgot his feet," Emmett said. "He's not my man," Bowen snapped automatically, then looked at Wick and said, "Are you drunk?" Wick mumbled something that might have been denial. Jon felt suddenly tired beyond anger. "Let him go," he said. Emmett glanced at him. "You sure?" "Yes." Emmett released Wick with a shove. The steward stumbled, straightened, would not meet Jon's eyes. Bowen looked from one to the other. "This is what you've done," he said to Jon. "This is what follows." Jon might have answered that what followed was still less bloody than it could have been. Instead, he said, "Then keep them better." Bowen's mouth trembled with things unsaid. The red priests by the fire had fallen silent now, watching. Their chant had risen and fallen all day, some tongue of heat and faith that sounded to Jon like a forge trying to become a prayer. One of them made a sign in the air as he looked at Jon. Ghost turned his head and showed him his teeth as well. "Come," Bowen said sharply to the brothers. "Back to your duties, all of you." They dispersed in knots, slow with reluctance. Wick went with his head down. Emmett lingered half a breath. "That one won't be the last," he muttered. "I know." Emmett's gaze flicked to Ghost. "Best friend a man can have tonight." Jon laid a hand on the direwolf's shoulder. "Hey." He left the armory unfinished and went instead to his chamber. The room looked smaller than it had that morning. There were few enough things in it. A bed, a chest, a stool, a basin with a rim of ice. The black cloak he had worn since his vows hung from a peg beside the door. He stared at it for a long time. It had once seemed the garment that would make him into the man he meant to be. Even when it stank of horse and sweat, even when the wool chafed and froze and dragged at his shoulders in sleet, it had held a kind of rough sanctity. A brotherhood, a purpose, a chosen exile. He had been proud of it in ways he had not known how to confess. Now it looked like judgment made cloth. Jon took it down. The weight of it in his hands was nothing and everything. He remembered the day he had first been given black wool. Not this cloak, another, rougher and too large. He had drawn it about himself with the fierce solemnity of a boy playing at manhood and thought the world remade. He had not understood then that oaths did not end longing. They only taught it new postures. Ghost jumped lightly onto the bed and sat, watching. Jon folded the cloak once, then again, slower the second time because his hands had begun to shake. There came a knock. He half expected Bowen or one of the king's men. It was Sam Doughty. Sam entered carrying a bundle of papers hugged to his chest, his cheeks raw from the cold. He saw the folded black cloak in Jon's hands and stopped. "Oh." Jon set the cloak aside. "What have you got there?" "Store counts, grain tallies, salt meat, lamp oil," I thought. Sam's face worked. "I thought if you meant what you said to Stannis, you ought to know what the wall can spare and what it cannot." Something like gratitude and grief moved together through Jon. "Thank you." Sam came in, shut the door with his heel, and set the papers on the stool. "Bowen is taking a new count tonight because he thinks the king's men are stealing sacks. He may be right. I don't know." He looked at the folded black cloak again. "I brought quills too." Jon gave a humorless smile. "For what?" "So you can sign as whatever you are before you forget how." That cut and comforted him in the same stroke. He sat on the edge of the bed. Sam, after a hesitant moment, perched on the stool. Ghost's tail thumped once against the blanket. "Did Aemon sleep?" Jon asked. "A little. He says old men are better at it because they're halfway practiced." Sam swallowed. "He sent this." From the inside of his sleeve, he drew a small strip of old parchment, folded several times. Jon opened it carefully. Inside, in Aemon's thin, uncertain hand, was written only, "Build where the cold is worst." Jon read it twice. "That sounds like him," he said. Sam gave a wet snort that might have been a laugh if he had been a different man on a different day. "It sounds like a riddle," It's advice. You always liked his riddles. Jon looked at the papers Sam had brought. Grain, oil, oats, salt, dye. Numbers to anchor a world that seemed determined to drift. He took up one of the quills and rolled it between his fingers. Outside, the yard stirred. Voices rose and fell. A horn sounded once. The castle was gathering. It's near time, Sam whispered. Jon nodded. He set the quill down and stood. So did Sam. He. For a moment, neither moved. Then Sam stepped forward all at once and embraced him with the awkward ferocity only Sam could manage, almost knocking Longclaw against the bedpost. Jon held him back equally hard. When Sam let go, he scrubbed at his face and said, "I still think this is terrible." "It probably is. That doesn't help. It wasn't meant to." Sam took a long breath and failed to steady it. "Then go make it less terrible." Jon picked up the folded cloak and carried it with him to the door. The shield hall had never felt so much like a battlefield. Men packed the benches and stood 5 deep along the walls. Black brothers rubbing shoulders with Southron knights. Queen's men glaring at wildling women peering from the back shadows. Servants craning for a look. Every torch guttering in the draft that came under the great doors. Snowmelt shone on the rushes where boots had tramped it in. Shields taken from dead rangers and forgotten wars hung overhead, their painted beasts and emblems dark with age. Jon had stood in the hall before, to take counsel, to announce stores, to discipline men. Never as the thing under judgment. Stannis stood on the low dais where a Lord Commander might have addressed the castle. He had insisted on the place, or on something like it. There would be no mistaking what was happening or where. The king wore a plain dark surcoat over mail, the fiery heart with stag antlers bright upon his chest. At his right hand stood Melisandre, red against all the blacks and browns and grays, like a drop of fresh blood in snow. On his left, stiff with disfavor, stood Selyse. Shireen was with her, solemn and thin and too young to have learned how to hide curiosity under ceremony. Justin held the rolled decree. Jon stood below the dais with Ghost at his side and the folded black cloak over one arm. The murmur in the hall ebbed only when Stannis lifted a hand. "Read it," the king said. Justin broke the seal and began. His voice carried well enough, though the hall swallowed some of the formal language and gave back only the bones of it. "Jon, late called Snow, natural son of Eddard Stark, by royal authority, legitimate and true-born, rights and dignities, Lord of Winterfell." At the speaking of that title, the sound rose again despite every effort at restraint. Breath hissed through teeth. Somebody swore in the rear. A chair scraped hard. One of the Queen's men muttered praise to his god. 2 black brothers left the hall and did not wait for dismissal. Jon stood and let the decree pass over him like weather. He fixed his eyes on the rushes before the dais rather than any face. If he looked at Bowen now, he might see accusation. If he looked at Sam, he might see grief. If he looked at the king, he might see only a man pleased to have moved a piece. Better the rushes. Better the trampled snow and old reeds and dirt underfoot. When Justin finished, Stannis stepped forward. "This man was born a bastard," he said, and the bluntness of it cut through the hall more effectively than any herald's flourish might have. "That is no sin of his. He has served the realm at the wall. He has commanded here. He is of Stark blood by Eddard Stark's seed, and the North bleeds for want of its own. I name him now Jon Stark, lawful son of Winterfell, and place upon him the charge of taking back his father's seat in my name and under my peace." It was not a beautiful speech. Stannis never wasted beauty where iron would serve. Yet it hit as he meant it to. Jon heard whispers. "Stark, Stark, Stark." The word had weight in the mouths of Northmen. In some, it sounded like relief. In others, blasphemy. Stannis descended 1 step from the dais, not enough to humble himself, but enough to close the distance. "Kneel," he said. Jon did. The rushes were cold where his knee pressed them. He had knelt before his father as a child when asking pardon after mischief. He had knelt before a heart tree when he swore his vows. He had knelt to no king before now. Stannis laid one hand on his shoulder. It was a hard hand, even through leather and wool. "Rise, Jon Stark." The words rang through the hall. Jon stood. For one strange instant he felt the room sway around him as if the hall itself had been struck and was still finding its balance. His breath came shallow. Ghost pressed lightly against his leg. Stannis stepped back. "Your cloak." Jon's fingers tightened on the folded black wool. All at once the hall, the king, the whispering men, the torches, the shields, all of it retreated. There was only the cloak and the years bound in it. He unfolded it slowly. The black drank light. Patches and wear showed where his hands had repaired it, where years of use had thinned the wool at shoulder and hem. He remembered sleet in his face atop the wall, remembered dead frost on a ranger's beard, remembered Jorah Mormont's rough approval, remembered laughing with Pip over half-burned sausage in the common hall, remembered the first time the black had felt less like exile and more like belonging. Every memory made the next harder. He drew the cloak from his shoulders and held it before him. The air bit instantly through the layers beneath. A murmur went through the Black brothers. The sound of wool leaving wool was nearly nothing. Yet it might as well have been a sword drawn. Jon carried the cloak to the table Justin had set near the dais and laid it there with both hands, careful, almost reverent. No one in the hall moved. He turned back. A king's man came forward with a fresh cloak of thick gray wool lined in undyed fleece, plain but warm. No sigil marked it. Perhaps Stannis had thought that wise. Perhaps he had simply had no time for more. Jon took it, swung it about his shoulders, fastened it with a simple clasp of dark iron. Gray, Gundry, as I. Not black. Not yet stark gray either. Something between. How fitting, he thought with a flash of bitter humor. Between had always been my truest place. Stannis' voice came again. Speak to them. There was no escape. Jon stepped forward into the vacancy his own act had opened. The sea of faces blurred and sharpened by turns. Bowen stood rigid as a post, hands clenched before him. Othell's face was unreadable stone. Emmett gave nothing away. Sam looked as if each breath cost him effort. Aemon was not there. Mercy in that. Melisandre watched like a woman at prayer. Khaleesi watched like a woman at judgment. Jon let the silence build until it hurt. I took the black freely, he said. His voice carried better than he expected. No man forced my vows on me. I do not say the words were false, or that the years I served here meant less than they did. They meant everything. A stir ran through the benches and was checked. But the wall cannot eat vows. It cannot burn them for warmth. It cannot turn them into grain, horses, timber, or men. The North is broken. Winterfell is held by those who murdered guests beneath their roof and wear stolen lordship like flayed skin. A girl who may be my sister is in their hands. The king goes south to break them. I go with him. Nah. The hall breathed as one thing. No brother of the Night's Watch is commanded to follow me. Hear that plain. No man in black rides in this war for me or for the king. If any man chooses the road south, he first chooses to put off the black forever. I ask it of no one. I command it of no one. The watch remains the watch. Landed. Some faces eased, if only by a fraction. He looked directly at Bowen then. I leave the wall to men who know its worth. Guard it. Hold the stores close. Trust no smiling Southron who asks for grain with clean gloves on. Count every arrow. Send to Eastwatch and the Shadow Tower. Mend the gates. Keep the old quarrels as small as you can. And when winter shows you dead blue eyes in the dark, remember that I did not forget them. Rasho-ra. He had not meant to say the last. Once spoken, it changed the room. Some men crossed themselves. Some looked annoyed. Some Very few looked afraid in the old true way. Stannis reclaimed the moment before it could become wholly Jon's. By dawn we march. That broke the assembly's back. Voices burst loose at once. Benches scraped. Men rose half out of their seats to shout questions, curses, prayers. Selyse murmured hotly to one of her women. Shireen craned to keep Jon in sight as if names being made and remade were things a child ought to study. Melisandre only smiled. Through the noise, one sound came clear. A deserter. It came from the body of the hall, from somewhere behind Bowen. A single hoarse, furious voice. Others echoed it at once. Deserter. Oathbreaker. Stark. Dot. Bastard. Lord. You. Crow. Wolf. All of them were true in someone's mouth. Ghost bared his teeth, and the nearest men flinched back. Jon did not move. Stannis' hand dropped to the hilt of his sword. Any man who disrupts the king's peace in this hall will answer to me. The threat cut through even anger. No one cared to test where Stannis would draw the line. The shouting sank to muttering. Jon stood at the center of it in his gray cloak, feeling every inch of the black wool he had laid aside as if it still hung from his shoulders. He could not tell whether he was lighter without it, or less protected. Then Sam in the second row did a thing both brave and heartbreaking. He bowed his head. Not kneeling, not acclaiming, only bowing once as a friend might bow at a grave because he cannot bear to do more. Jon saw it. Bowen saw it. Perhaps no one else did. It hurt more than every cry of deserter. Stannis raised his voice. Dismissed. Men began to spill from the hall, carrying the news into every corridor and tower of Castle Black. By the time the last Black brother had gone, Jon knew the ravens need not fly at all. The North was already being told. Night came hard and early, and with it the peculiar hush that follows a storm of words. Jon returned to his chamber only long enough to gather what little he owned. A spare shirt, gloves, a whetstone, the few letters he had kept from home, thin and precious from years of folding. Longclaw needed no packing. The sword was part of him by then, or near enough. The black cloak he left where it was, laid neatly on the stool. He could not bring himself to hide it in the chest, nor hang it up again as if this were a pause and not an ending. Ghost lay by the dying fire, white fur silvered in the glow. Now and then he lifted his head at sounds in the corridor. Men passed often. Some footsteps paused outside his door, then moved on. The guards Stannis had posted stood at either end of the passage, not trying to conceal themselves. Their presence kept one sort of danger away and invited another kind of shame. Near midnight, Jon went to Aemon again. Sam was there with a candle and red-rimmed eyes. He made to rise when Jon entered, but Aemon lifted one hand and stilled him. "Come," the old man said. "Old men should not be made to wait on farewells. We might die from the effort." His voice was dry enough that Jon smiled despite everything. The room was warmer than the corridor and dimmer. Shadows gathered in the shelves. Aemon sat half-reclined beneath blankets, the bones of his face made delicate by the light. Jon had always thought him indestructible in the way of very old men, as if time, having worked so hard to wear him down, would grow possessive and refuse to finish the task. Tonight he looked suddenly mortal. Jon knelt beside the chair. "I came to ask your blessing," he said. Aemon's blind eyes turned toward the sound. "A dangerous request. If I bless folly, it becomes twice as bold. Then bless caution. That I can do." The old man found Jon's head with trembling fingers and rested his palm there. It was a father's gesture, a grandfather's, a maester's, all tangled together. May your pride not outrun your purpose. May cold truths remain cold even in warm halls. May you remember the difference between being named and being changed. And may the gods, whichever ones still trouble themselves with men, keep your sword sharp for the enemies that matter. No. Jon bowed his head lower. "Thank you." Aemon's hand slipped away. When you stand in Winterfell, remember that walls are fed from both sides. A man who forgets the hunger behind him is soon devoured by the hunger before. I will remember. You say that now because memory is easy in a poor room. Aemon's mouth twitched. Tested in a rich one. Sam turned away to sniff hard into his sleeve. Jon rose and looked around the room that had held so much counsel, so much frailty, so much quiet strength. If the road takes me west or north again, I'll send to you. Send only if it is useful, Aemon said. I have no wish to clutter my old age with sentiment. You lie, Sam muttered. Yes, said Aemon serenely. That is one of the privileges of age. Jon bent and kissed the old man's brow. The skin there was as cool and light as paper. When he straightened, Aemon had already settled back as if withdrawing from the pain of parting by sheer practice. Outside, Sam followed him into the corridor and shut the door softly. He was waiting for you, Sam whispered. I know. Sam swallowed, then thrust a folded packet into Jon's hands. These are the revised grain counts and which store cellars are driest. If you take Winterfell and find grain there, send it north first. Don't wait for the king to ask. And there's a list of the castles with broken mills, and another with the names of brothers whose kin may still be alive south of the wall, if you can use them for letters. Jon took the packet. You did this tonight? Sam shrugged miserably. I didn't feel like sleeping. Jon tucked the papers into his belt. I used them. Sam nodded. He did not say, be careful. The words were too small and they both knew it. When Jon left the Maester's tower, the yard lay under new snow. It had fallen fine and dry, a skin over the older trampled crust. Torches leaned in the wind. Men moved in lines and knots, loading horses, checking girths, cursing frozen straps. The host was already half assembled for dawn. Val stood near the stables watching the preparations with her arms folded inside a white fur mantle. She seemed more at home in the midnight cold than any man there. When she saw Jon, she came toward him without hesitation. So, she said, the name held through supper. Barely. That may be the best sort. She held something out. It was a strip of white fur bound with leather thong, finer than any Jon had seen on a common cloak. Wolf, perhaps, or something near enough in the frozen forests beyond the wall. For your clasp, she said. So the South remembers what bit it. Jon took it. The fur was soft despite the cold. I've nothing to give you for it. Val's eyes flashed. That is because you still think gifts are trades. He almost answered, then stopped. There was no use pretending ignorance with her. Then, thank you, he said. That will do. She glanced toward the stables where Stannis' men moved under lantern light. The king means to ride hard. He always means that. He also means to use you. Jon tied the strip of white fur beneath the plain clasp of his gray cloak. Against the wool it gleamed like a slash of moonlight. I know. Val looked at it, approved, then looked back at him. When you come to Winterfell, open the gates to the free folk before you open them to priests. I'll remember. If you forget, I'll remind you with a spear. Her smile took some of the threat out of that. Not all. Ghost came to stand between them, brushing one and then the other with his flank as if he too meant to tie something together before the road untied it. From the far side of the yard came the sound of raised voices. Jon turned sharply, but it was only teamsters arguing over a balking horse. For the length of a heartbeat he had expected knives. Val saw that. You should sleep? With guards outside my door? Then pretend to. She tipped her head. Men hunt most eagerly when they believe their prey has forgotten them. Best disappoint them. He thought of Melisandre's warning and did not argue. Back in his room, he sat on the edge of the bed with boots still on and Longclaw within reach. Ghost settled across the threshold like a pale fallen branch. Outside, Boots paced at intervals. Snow hissed faintly against the shutter. Sleep came only in scraps. Winterfell's towers rose and fell behind his eyes. Sometimes he was a boy in its yards. ducking Robb's wooden sword. Sometimes he was a man climbing its battlements in snow thick as wool while flayed skins whispered from the walls. Once he dreamed he stood in the godswood and the heart tree had his father's face, stern and sorrowful and already knowing what he had done. Before dawn a horn blew and he opened his eyes all at once, sword half drawn and heart pounding. The room was still there. The black cloak still lay on the stool. Ghost had not moved. "It's time," Jon told him. The direwolf rose. Dawn at the wall was not sunrise so much as the darkness taking one careful step backward. The eastern sky bruised itself from black to deep iron gray. Frost painted the stable doors. Horses steamed and stamped, their tack chiming softly as men tightened straps with numb hands. Banners stirred above the assembly. The fiery heart with its crowned stag, smaller pennons snapping like fishbones in the wind, and newly raised and still strange to the eye, a plain gray standard with no sigil at all. There had been no time to make a direwolf. Or perhaps Stannis had thought absence wiser than presumption. Jon came down into the yard with Ghost loping ahead of him and felt the castle notice. Some men stopped what they were doing. Some did not. On the wall above, black shapes lined the parapet where brothers had come to watch the king depart and the Oathbreaker with him. From this distance they were only crows against ice. Yet Jon could pick out individuals all the same. Bowen, rigid near the steps. Emmett, leaning on the parapet with a soldier's slouch. Clytus wrapped like a child lost in clothes. Sam farther back, hood up, hands hidden in sleeves. Aemon was nowhere to be seen. Good. Good. Let the old man keep his bed. Stannis waited, mounted beside the gate, dark and still in the saddle, as if neither cold nor impatience nor sleep ever touched him. His horse champed the bit and rolled an eye at Ghost. Justin sat a little behind him with the first packet of letters already dispatched and more tied in oilskin at his saddle. When Jon approached, one of the grooms brought forward a rangy gray gelding with more bone than beauty. Jon recognized the horse. He had ridden him twice on ranging drills when other mounts were lame. The gelding flicked an ear at him as if uncertain whether to approve the new arrangement. "Be steady," the groom muttered, "as long as the wolf doesn't get too close behind." "Then he'll learn," Jon said. He mounted. The gray cloak settled about him, unfamiliar in its balance. The strip of white fur Val had given him stirred at his throat in the wind. Longclaw rode at his hip. The packet of store counts and names Sam had thrust on him the night before pressed against his side like a quiet second blade. Stannis looked him over once. "You have the face of a man riding to his own hanging." "Perhaps I am. If you are, we'll hang together later. For now, there are miles to cover." That was as close to comfort as Stannis Baratheon was likely to come. The gate crew had the great chains ready. Men braced themselves. Orders rang. Iron shrieked as the gate began to rise. Jon turned in the saddle and looked back. Castle Black sprawled beneath the wall like something huddling for warmth at a giant's feet. Smoke drifted from the chimneys in thin blue threads. The top of the wall was washed in the first dead light. Black brothers watched from the height, unmoving. A few king's men in the yard made the sign of their god toward Melisandre, who stood near a brazier with her red robe stirring and her face unreadable at this distance. Selyse watched from a tower window like a carved thing. Shireen lifted one gloved hand, uncertain whether in farewell or curiosity. Sam did not move at all. Jon searched the parapet until he found Bowen. The Lord Steward did not bow. He did not turn away either. He only stood with both hands on the ice-rimed stones and looked down as one might look after a ship that has cut its moorings in storm. Jon gave him the only salute that felt honest. He touched 2 fingers to brow and heart. For the wall. For what had been. For what he had broken and what he still meant to defend. Bowen's face did not change. But after a moment so small Jon might have imagined it, the steward inclined his head. The gate lifted clear. Cold air flowed under the tunnel like breath from the mouth of a cave. Beyond waited the King's Road, the long white sweep south, the beginning of every consequence. "Ride," Stannis said. The host moved. Horses surged. Harness rattled. Snow broke under hooves in dull, brittle snaps. Jon let the gray take his place in the column and felt the whole of Castle Black slide around him as he entered the tunnel beneath the wall. Ice loomed to either side, old and blue, and streaked with trapped bubbles and dead winters. Sound changed inside it. Hoofbeats deepened. Men's voices flattened into echoes. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to frozen walls and the dark opening ahead. He had passed beneath that tunnel before, going north in black. He had never imagined passing under it southbound in gray with the king's banners overhead and Winterfell before him like a wound reopening. Ghost ran beside the horses, noiseless even on the packed snow. His breath smoked white. His fur caught what little dawn there was and made its own light. At the far mouth of the tunnel, the world widened suddenly. Open sky, open cold. The King's Road stretching away between drifts and frost-hard trees. Men ahead and men behind. A moving line of steel and wool and hunger. Jon reined it in for a single moment once they were clear and looked back. The wall rose immense and impersonal, pale flame of dawn on its face. Castle Black crouched beneath it, the brothers now small as crows indeed. From this side, the height seemed even greater, as if leaving had made it grow. Stannis brought his horse alongside. Last chance to repent. Jon kept his eyes on the wall a heartbeat longer. He thought of his vows, of his father's face beneath the red leaves, of Arya's laughter, of Sam's trembling hands, of Bowen's anger, of Aemon's blessing, of Val's warning, of Melisandre's fires. He thought of flayed banners over Winterfell and dead things in the dark woods, and the strange, impossible name now tied around him like the gray cloak on his shoulders. When he turned back, the road south seemed to draw him by the breastbone. "I did all my repenting in the night," he said. "Good," Stannis replied. "Save your strength for killing." He put spurs to his horse and moved ahead. Jon followed. The column bent southward under a sky the color of old steel. Snow whispered from the bare branches. Somewhere far ahead lay Deepwood Motte, Last Hearth, White Harbor's hidden loyalties, the Dreadfort's rot, Winterfell's broken towers, a girl and another girl's name, and all the knives that waited between. Behind him, the wall diminished, but never enough. He had been born as Snow. He rode now as Stark. Neither truth canceled the other. One was the wound, the other the hand pressed over it. Together they beaten him with every stride of the horse. Treason, return, exile, homecoming, duty, desire. The old divisions had not vanished. They had only begun to march in the same direction. Jon bent low against the cold and rode south into the white morning.